What's going on, guys? Eric here and welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I tinted the taillight of this Chrysler 300M in about 8.5 minutes using VViVid's new Ultimate Tint for taillights and headlights. So you'll want to start off with a piece that's been measured out big enough to cover your entire taillight up and down, left and right, with extra all the way around so that you have areas to hold on to. You can see I've got my piece already cut out and I've held it up to make sure that the measurements, the piece that I cut out is going to be big enough. Going ahead and peeling off the backing plastic and then going to center the vinyl loosely onto the tail light to make sure that I have full coverage pretty evenly all the way around. You want to make sure that you have it set up that way. Once I have that set up, I'm going to go ahead and lay down. I'm doing it on the flattest part of the surface, which is basically the bottom 2/3 to 3/4 of the tail light. This is a really simple and easy tail light, very flat except for the very top and the side edges. Using my squeegee, just going ahead and squeegeeing down the flat part of the surface, and now I'm going back up where I'm going to hit kind of the top of the area. It starts to bow upward and in towards me a little bit, and I'm going to go to where it reaches kind of a lined edge at the top of the tail light, which kind of has a sort of a triangular shape there, and that's where I'm going to set everything up to get ready to go ahead and stretch around the curve to go over the top of the headlight. Taillight, excuse me. So at the bottom, I've reached a point where it's going to curve around the outer side, the right side of the taillight. So I'm just making a little relief cut so that the vinyl will easily go around that. Once I've got it all set up, I'm taking my torch to heat up the whole upper area and the entire side area. Don't just do a little bit, but do the whole area of the vinyl that has not been applied so far. And now I'm going to stretch in a triangular fashion. You can see my hands are pulling left to right, and but also up and straight towards it, and stretching all the way around to get a nice, good, even glass around the top corner, the top and the corner top of that tail light. Now I'm pulling the vinyl around the side. There's a little bit of a lip around the side. And so for that, I'm just doing exactly the same thing. I did warm up that area as well. And once I've got it nice and glassed over, I'm just laying down the vinyl and pressing it really good and firmly onto the tail light with my squeegee. Going all the way around at the bottom, I'm tracing out the bottom where I'm going to be making my cut line. On the side, I'm tracing that side piece out where I'm going to make my cut. I'm going to use the edge of the tail light as my cut line. Cutting off a little bit of excess here now that I've got everything laid down, just a little bit too much, kind of getting in the way. At the top, I'm doing the same thing there, cutting off a little bit of excess as well. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm prepping to make sure that the vinyl is set and will be relaxed and tucked at the edges so that I can lay it down and be confident that it's not going to come up a little bit later. And so what I'm doing, sorry, my elbow is blocking the view here, is I'm trying to set up the vinyl and pulling it back from the edge just a little bit so that I can um, be able to heat it and let it shrink back. So I'm pulling the vinyl off the edges just a little bit, maybe about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch, and then I'm heating it because I did stretch that area, so I'm giving it some heat so that the vinyl will shrink back. Give it a couple seconds, let it chill out, and then while it's still a little bit warm, then I'm taking my squeegee, and you can see I'm using the hard edge of my squeegee to mold and shape that vinyl down on the flat all the way to the edge. And because I heated it and shrunk it, I've taken out any shrinkage from me stretching that vinyl film around the edges there. Again, I'm doing that on the side because I did stretch around the sides. I apologize, did not realize that my camera angle, I will be blocking it like this. Anyway, so doing the same thing, pull the vinyl back about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch from the edge, giving it some heat so that it will shrink the vinyl down, letting it chill just for a second, and then once it's chilled out for a little bit, and then but still a little bit warm, I'm going ahead and shaping and molding the vinyl down to the edges of the tail light. And what I'm doing there again is just getting rid of any shrink that's going to happen so that later on this does not fail and start fingering and pulling back because I did stretch around the edge there. Once I've got that all set, you can see I'm just giving everything a little bit of heat to see if I missed any bubbles on the film, and then also make sure that there's no more stretching, or excuse me, shrinking that needs to happen. And now I'm taking my micro squeegee and tracing the edges of the vinyl along the edge of the tail light so that I make a good sharp defined line. Now this tail light film, headlight film, has a protective cap on it, which I have not removed yet. And so I'm taking a little poker that I have, and I'm going to separate and peel out the plastic protective cap. As you saw, you can install with the plastic protect cap on there, and pretty much like you would regular vinyl. It does restrict some stretch of the film itself, but it stretches really well with the vinyl. And you can see once I peeled off that cap, how super glossy and smooth and shiny this film is, this headlight and taillight tint is. So now that I've had a chance, or I've let the film sit for a little bit, I'm going ahead and I'm going to make sure one last time that all of my edges are tucked nice and tightly against the edge of the taillight, so that I'm already prepared for cutting the film right along the edges and making a good clean cut with no issues. This is also one last check to make sure I don't have any wrinkles, because if you cut through a wrinkle, it ends up looking like a chattery, kind of jaggedy looking cut. Once I have that all set and I'm confident that everything's ready to go, I'm going to take my blade and I'm going to just real lightly, there's a gap between the back edge of the taillight and the body of the car, and I'm pressing my side of my blade against the back edge of the taillight, so kind of pulling, if you will, towards the screen. And just using the edge of the taillight as my guide for my knife, and I'm just taking my time because I don't want to scratch or cut the taillight or the car at all. So I'm taking my time, just cutting through. Make sure your blade is super sharp so that it slices right through the vinyl without any issues. If you do hit any areas that start to kind of resist your cut, stop for a second, maybe reposition your blade a little bit, reposition your body to make sure that you're not going to be cutting something that you shouldn't be cutting. I reached a point where I'm going to go ahead and switch positions here, but essentially doing the same thing. I'm floating the blade in the gap between the tail light and in this case, the bumper part, pushing up against the tail light so that acts as my guide, my cut guide for the knife. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut off some of this excess and then allow the areas that I have cut to come off. You can see there's a part where I didn't quite cut all the way. I didn't finish or complete my cut. So when you do start peeling off your vinyl, be careful. Don't just rip it off, because you might not have cut all the way through. And if you do just rip it off, you may damage the work that you've just done setting up your vinyl. So I'm peeling off the excess that I've already cut for now on the outside of the taillight, and trimming off that excess. And then after that, I'm just going to make sure that everything is squared away by tucking everything in. I'm using a different kind of micro squeegee to tuck everything in real nice and tightly along the edges there, since I just finished cutting them. I want to make sure there's no frayed edges. Everything's tucked nice and tight and sealed so that it looks really good and clean and professional. Now I just have to cut off the last remaining excess vinyl on the inside, the left side of the taillight. Again, just using the side of the taillight against as my cut guide for my knife. Taking my time, going nice and slow, cutting off that excess, and finished. Take off the excess vinyl. There you go. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of press everything down, make sure that all the corners, edges are sealed. I'm going to use a little bit of heat to make sure I didn't miss any areas. The heat will, if there's any bubbles that are trapped, the heat will make the bubbles expand, and you'll find that right away. And so this headlight or tail light has been fully wrapped in about a little bit less than 8.5 minutes. All right, guys, so I hope you found this video to be helpful. You could see that the process was really straightforward, very simple and fast. You can get both headlights done in about 20 minutes, to include a little bit of cleaning if they're not too bad. If you found this video to be helpful and useful, value added in some way, shape, or form, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. Hit the bell notification if you haven't already, so you get notices whenever I post new content to the channel. I've got more videos in the works on the way, and I'd love to share those with you. Thanks again, guys, and have a great day.